Thank you for joining me here on the last segment of today's show, just to talk about some more quick trade updates. This time regarding Mike Williams, a um, a pretty popular name, I would say, in terms of trade, as far as trade candidates go, because as the trade deadline approaches, the teams get a better understanding, obviously, of what their rosters have already and what they still need, right? In terms of what is going to make you that much better going into the trade line and after the trade deadline, when there's not turning back in terms of who is on this roster. You get a better understanding of what you need to improve on, much like the Bills, obviously realizing that the receivers right now are becoming a bit of a problem. Let's go get Amari Cooper, right? They've improved a lot. Same thing with the Jets. They had no other option but to go get Davante Adams to salvage this season. So they went out and got him, obviously. The next couple weeks are gonna make everything a bit tighter. It's gonna make everything a bit more intense in terms of, you have some of these players out there. Are you gonna be willing to pull the trigger and get one of these wide receivers, especially because they've been one of the more talked about names, obviously with Amari and Davante moving already. But even going back to the summer with Brandon Ayuk, Cortland Sutton being in a couple rumors as well. The receivers have definitely been getting a lot of love and a lot of attention with all those massive contracts obviously being handed out. The receiver position has been very popular over the last couple of months. So based on what we've seen with the recent moves and the recent trend with the market, the wide receiver market is set up to be the most popular, with guys still out there like DeAndre Hopkins, Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, Christian Kirk potentially on the Jaguars, Mike Williams like we mentioned, and Darius Slayton. I think are probably the most likely names to move before the trade deadline, and just based on the reports. But sticking to Mike Williams, because I feel like he's the next one to move. According to these reports, three teams have reached out to the Jets about Mike Williams so far. Those teams are the Los Angeles Chargers, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the New Orleans Saints, according to The Athletic. And not really too surprising, considering that each team's situation with their passing games hasn't been great so far, and could arguably have gotten worse in terms of the Saints. So, the Chargers and the Steelers were on the list yesterday of the teams that I mentioned as, trading for wide receivers, obviously, like I said in yesterday's episode, and now they're being reported that they've reached out at least to the Jets to ask about Mike Williams. And looking at each situation right now and kind of breaking it down as to why they would love to add a guy like Mike Williams. You look at the Chargers, right? Their rookie wide receiver, Ladd McConkey, is their leading wide receiver in terms of receptions with 19, 32 targets, and 219 yards as well. They're all top of the leaderboard in terms of stats against all other wide receivers on the Chargers right now. So that's it's impressive for Ladd McConkey, but for the Chargers, you'd like to have somebody outside of just your rookie, right, who just stepped foot in your organization. You would like other people to step up, and maybe you don't really have it with Quentin Johnson and all the other guys that they have, but adding a guy like Mike Williams could be a interesting proposal for the Chargers, because right now they're sitting at 3-2, which isn't bad. They brought in a new regime with Jim Harbaugh, and it's going as good as you would have liked it to, right? With this running game, with this defense that has looked better. They were in a close game with the Chiefs as well. It's gone pretty well. And the fact that they, got rid of Keenan Allen, they got rid of Mike Williams in the summer, and had Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack take less money, they've certainly had to sacrifice some things. So it's not been a bad situation, but adding a guy like Mike Williams would certainly help to me, because this Chargers team is 29th in the NFL in terms of passing yards and passing yards per game. And I just feel like Justin Herbert needs somebody else to go to in these close games, where we saw it against the Chiefs and how frustrated he was in that game, because they missed on a lot of opportunities on offense. And a lot of that could just be because they don't have enough guys to really be a threat out there. So adding a guy like Mike Will, being familiar with Justin Herbert, being familiar with just the entire organization could be intriguing. And it's not too much different with the Steelers, right? Because the Steelers are 28th in the NFL in passing yards and passing yards per game, only one spot, less bad or one spot better than the Chargers at 29th. And another very good defense, right? Like the Chargers, they have a pretty good defense. The Steelers' defense, I would say, is probably better, but the offense is a problem because if they make one mistake, it seems like the drive that they've had going so far, it feels like everything is ruined with a bad throw, one mistake. They're walking on eggshells on offense, and that's not a way to really, one, be confident in your offense and what you're doing, but also it's not a way to complement the defense that's pretty much doing everything for the offense to be afraid to make a mistake and taking the easy throws and not pushing the ball down the field and holding themselves back. It's not something that the Steelers team obviously needs, and it's a miracle that they're 4-2 right now. And to that point, though, the offense might be something, the play calling, the schemes, and all that might be one thing, but also it just feels like personnel-wise, with the receivers that they have, that could be another thing that's getting in their way, unfortunately, right? And I don't think I've mentioned Van Jefferson's name one time this year, and he's supposed to be a major contributor because of that wide receiver room that the Steelers have, right? Outside of George Pickens, it's Calvin Austin, Van Jefferson, Pat Freiermuth, a tight end, technically, and like Scotty Miller, Roman Wilson, who's a rookie. I think he should be playing more, but he's kind of getting back from an injury. So if the guy that you brought in, Van Jefferson, really isn't doing much so far, it's a problem. It's a problem because you need more clearly on that offense to get more out of this group. And again, being 4-2 isn't bad by any means, but they can't just give it up now, right? They can't just sit on their hands and think that this is going to be good enough. They need to make a move, and Mike Williams seems like someone that could at least get 3 catches in a game. I don't know how many receptions Van Jefferson has, but it hasn't been great. And then you get to the Saints, which could be as close to rock bottom as you could possibly get out of any of these situations, especially on offense because of how they got outplayed pretty convincingly against the Broncos. And Chris Olave's been out with a concussion. They just lost one of their premier receivers in Rashid Shaheed. He's out for the year now. And they were in for trying to get Davante Adams, right? They were interested because of Derek Carr. So now they need someone else to step in, especially now that Rashid Shaheed is out. And there's 22nd in the NFL in terms of passing yards and passing yards per game. So not that much better than the Steelers and the Chargers as well. They, to me, are the team that definitely needs him the most. I would say they're the team that, if they were to give up anything, they should be giving up the most to try and get Mike Williams. Certainly because of the fact that they lost Rashid Shaheed, like I said, but also that they're 2-5 right now. They've lost 5 straight games in a row. So if the urgency isn't at its absolute maximum right now, you're about a win or two away from really just throwing in the towel on this season and, not really being considered a contender compared to what we saw in the first 2 weeks. So because of that, they need something to go their way. If they were able to land Mike Williams, you would feel a lot better about this receiving group. And in that same breath, I do believe that the Chargers would make the most sense because of that familiarity with Herbert. It's a run-heavy offense anyway, so he doesn't need to do a lot. I feel like with the Jets, outside of Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams was supposed to be the guy that was supposed to contribute a lot to this team. And coming off of an injury to a new team, completely new team, it was never going to be easy. So I feel like that amount of pressure was a bit too much on Mike Williams, whereas with the Saints, with the Chargers, they know they want to run the ball a lot. And the fact that he's very familiar what they're doing already with that organization, with playing with Justin Herbert and whatnot, that'll help him out a lot to get up to speed. And the Jets unfortunately don't have enough time to provide this extra learning time for a Mike Williams. So with the Chargers, I believe it would make the most sense. It would be the best fit. And even still with Pittsburgh, adding a guy like Mike Williams, I wouldn't say necessarily improves them, because we don't know who's going to play quarterback. We don't know how well Russell Wilson's going to play and all that sort of stuff. It's still a mess with them. So I feel like the Chargers would make the most sense, and it would make a bigger change to me right away as opposed to the Steelers. So, those are the three teams that are reportedly involved the most. So maybe by next week, Mike Williams gets traded, hopefully. I would like to see that happen. I don't think he should stay with the Jets. I know it's only a one-year deal and things like that, but they have their guys, right? They have Aaron Rodgers' guys. And I feel like for his sake, he could do a lot more somewhere else. So hopefully we see that happen at least before the trade deadline gets here, obviously on November the 5th. But that'll do it. That is going to wrap it up for the Chip Shot Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Thank you guys for joining me. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the show, as well as following the network on all forms of social media and checking out both YouTube channels, the GSMC Sports Network channel and the GSMC Podcast Network channel on YouTube, to catch more of this show in a variety of different ways around the NFL, still covering it on YouTube. And also, lastly here, tune in every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time to catch more of these live shows and interact live with me, covering the NFL, all the headlines, debating, discussing things around the NFL, obviously, with me, Manny Maradiaga, as your host. Thank you guys for joining me. I hope you guys all have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys back here on Monday to break down what we saw on Sunday, but also talk about next week's Monday Night Football doubleheader.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to